The 1930s, the Great Depression. Oh, yippee. What happened after the 20s when everything was so great, so wonderful, and so much fun, and now all of a sudden everything's terrible and awful, horrible, and people are starving? How did we get from the one to the other? Well, you're going to find out. In 1929, at the end of the 20s, was the stock market crash. Now, if you don't know anything about that, don't worry about it, neither did I. But I learned, and you're going to learn as well. So today we are going to play the stock market. Some of you who do know about this are like, no, I'm not. I want you to forget about all your common sense and forget about your knowledge of good money practices. For the next 10 to 15 minutes, you are a person in the 20s. You are very happy. You have lots of money to spend or to do whatever with, and everything's good. Everything's great. You don't need to save anything because it's all good and everything's just getting better. So what you're going to do, you hear about the stock market. Now, the stock market at that time was on what's called a bull run. It's not the bull moose party. It just means it's going up and up and up and up. Woohoo! So let's get in on this while we got the chance. And so the theory starts going around that basically this is the best investment you can make if you want to make money. The stock market's making more than anything else. So people basically put their life savings into stocks, or they mortgage their house to put the money into stocks.
Whoa.
They're doing everything they can to put as much in as possible because it's making money and making money and making money. Well, how does that work? Well, we're going to try it today. Each of you have $10, and we are going to do stocks in 3 companies. The first company is one that you will remember. First of all, I need to know who would like to be a company owner. Ooh, okay. Okay, hands down. All right, we're going to start with Daniel Spivey. Daniel Spivey is the owner of the Arsenic Medicine Company. No, Daniel. Now, Daniel doesn't know any better. And Daniel comes up with this formula. Now, people are already taking arsenic pills for asthma and whatnot. But his is special because, look, his is a liquid and it's grape flavored. So he knows that all the people who buy arsenic pills right now are going to want his medicine. So he's got a little company, but the profits are going way up. So you want to get in on this as soon as you can. All right. Meadow, she starts an obesity soap company, represented by this little ducky. Now, see this little ducky? See how skinny he is? Smaller than other duckies. He uses obesity soap. All right. And the reason she started this isn't her fault either. Her cousin's mother's brother's aunt's dentist had a friend who was really, really large, and she got new soap, and over the next few weeks, she got skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. And so Meadow finds out what's in this new soap she's using, and she made her own, started her own company. Good job, Meadow. Problem is, what she doesn't know, that lady just stopped eating cake for breakfast every morning, and that's what made her get skinny. But it's okay. Well, it's not okay, but it's okay for now. This is another small company, but it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger because, of course, obesity soap that works. This is exciting. We all want in on that. Third company. Are you Luke or David? David. Okay. Third company is David. Now, David, he doesn't want any part of that. He's got this brilliant idea. He's going to start a soda shop. And that's where there's a little counter, and people sit at the little bar, and they get Coca-Colas, or they get malts or milkshakes, because with Prohibition, all the people who were used to hanging out and having a drink need someplace to go now. So instead, he's going to let them go here, and it's going to be a super popular, the new juice joint. So he's all excited, and the profits are going wild. Okay, so at this point, you see these little pies. These are the shares for each of the companies. What that means is you can own part of this company as it gets bigger and better and more wonderful. And if you own, say, 1/10 of it, when its profits go up, your value of your share goes up. So, who wants to buy right now? Right now, the shares are $5 a piece. But you know that every one of these companies, the profit's going to go way up. And that means the cost of the shares are going to go way up. So you want in as quickly as possible so that you can get these things cheap so you can make money. So, who wants to buy a share in this for $5? You can buy as many shares as you can afford. Daniel Spivey is going to use his $2, $10. You can pick 2 of these pies and tear them off. Those are yours. Okay, who else wants? Okay, you go get 2 shares. He's buying 2 shares as well. Who wants to get a share in the arsenic pills. All right, you go and get one. Okay, go.
I don't want money.
All right, so, you want to share? Okay. Who wants to share in the soda pop company? All right. And freeze. Wait, freeze. Everybody sit down. Okay. During the stock market, things are changing every second. So what has happened right here is this one, nobody bought the stocks yet, so they're the same price. They're still $10. But these guys, look at them. They've already, oh man, this is getting popular. This is getting really exciting. So now these have gone up to $15 a share. These, they were 5, now they're 15. These are going up to 10. So, which one do you want to buy stock in now? That one. Okay, so, all right.
Well, I have the expensive.
All right, so you're going up. You can't get out of your seat, but you can, okay, go, get stuff. All right, yep, go get it. You can't get out of your seat to go get your stocks. All right, and free. Now, he just gave me money, but between the time he gave me money and the time he gets here, they've gone up. These shares are now $15 a piece. These shares are $20 a piece. These shares are $10 a piece. All right, so who wants some more? Now, wait a second. Those of you who are out of money, raise your hand. Okay, a bunch of you already spent your money. Don't worry about it. It's okay, because there's a bank right there. You can borrow money as much as you need to put into stocks to make more money. Because here's the thing. Who bought some of these when they were $5? Ooh, whatever it was. Okay. Well, right now they're worth $20.
No, I thought you said they were 15 and those were 20.
Well, they just went up. So if you have 2 of them, that's worth $40 now, and he only spent $10. So he's a happy camper. He's thinking, I want to get more stocks, so I'm going to get some money from the bank and buy some more stuff. So, Mr. Banker, why don't you come over here so that everybody doesn't go over there?
Can we sell stuff? Give me some.
You may, but they're all going up. So you never want to sell them when they're going up.
Okay, well, the moment one goes, the money.
We'll get there. Okay, so if you want something from the bank, you raise your hand and he will come and give you money. Who wants to buy one of these little Lucky stocks at this point?
I'm good with my $40.
I just got red sauce.
You're just borrowing money.
Okay,
I'm borrowing money.
Money is free.
Nobody. Who has
Not free.
$15?
I have a question.
I need lots of money.
All right, you want some more stuff over here? That's no fun.
Who?
I'm going to sell my stuff.
Okay, and freeze. Now, if you still want money, you can silently get it from the bank, but I want to explain something to you. Now, this one, all the stocks are gone. Now, the stocks were worth $20 a piece, but now that all the stocks are bought, the person who owns this company, which is who? David. David is super happy because he's got a ton of money, so he goes out and he buys a bigger building. He buys more stuff. He's making his company bigger. Well, you know what that means?
The stocks have been.
There's more shares to sell. So now the shares go back down a little bit to about $10 a share. So now
But aren't they
it was worth
small?
20, now it's worth 10.
Aren't they-
Some people are like, wait a second, should I get out or should I stay in because this company's really going crazy? Oh man, what are you gonna do? So at this point, if you want to buy stock, you can pay David $5 a piece, as many as you want. And then David is he wants to buy stocks and other stuff. So this is not really yours, it's mine. So I'm in. So, are we gonna let through these, right? Everybody's buying. Everybody's borrowing from the bank. Who else wants to borrow?
Borrowing money.
Okay, I'll take
to sell my car.
At this point, everything's $20. Who wants to buy for $20? All right, go. Oh no, they're running out. They're running out.
Hey, we'll sell you these $30.
My business is booming. I wanted to sell my stuff.
30. I don't have 30. Okay, and freeze. All right, sit down. So now some of you have stocks that companies are growing like crazy. They're worth $40 a share. So think about how much you bought, and I want you to tell me how much profit you have.
$120.
Woo! Hope's got $120.
90.
But not in her hands, in
Sorry,
shares.
70.
It's not really money. It's just part of this company, right?
I got
You do understand this? Okay. Okay. Everybody can stop. We're pausing. Right? So she has to decide. She's got $120 profit, but she doesn't have real cash. But she's thinking, oh man, this company's going like crazy. I want to invest some more. So she's like, well, I have $120 in shares, so I should borrow $120 from the bank and put it in more shares. So why don't you ask the bank?
I don't have $120.
How much do you have?
I have 25, 30 left. I got
Okay, so he's got, the bank has $30 left. How many of you owe money to the bank? And did you borrow it from the bank?
How many of you got free money from me?
Okay, so the bank comes around asking you, give me my money back, give me my money back, give me my money back. Hey, how many of you have money to pay him?
Wait, I've got
Okay.
Oh.
You have shares. Nope, shares don't count. So you need to sell
I need my
your
money back.
shares.
You give me money.
Here's the problem. Okay, so the bank is upset.
I didn't
Take your
borrow
money
from
back.
you.
You can go sit down. The bank is upset because it doesn't have the money. The bank's very nervous because at this point there are thousands of people who have money in the bank, like their life savings. And so now everybody's at the door, banging on the door, waiting for him to open to give them their money. That's called a run on the bank when everybody panics and they all say, I'm going to get my money out of the bank. Well, the bank at this point has nothing, like zero. So the bank locks its doors and shuts down. And that's literally what happened. So now people are panicking. Oh dear, I don't have enough money. So now they don't have enough money to buy this stuff anymore. So the stocks have started going down. So now they're down to $20 a piece again. So now people want to sell their stocks. I better sell this because it's going down. I better get out of this quick. So they try to sell it, but all these people are in debt. They can't buy it. They're stuck with stocks too. Now it's down to $10. Well then, the obesity soap company goes belly up because people figure out it doesn't work. The arsenic company, well, they figure out you're going to die, so that's bad, so it goes. And even the soda pop company, unbeknownst to David, had a moonshine building thing out in the back, so the feds came and arrested everybody. So, now all of you have nothing.
And some of you owe me money.
I have so much. So this is what happened in 1929 in America. People had shares of companies that were worthless. They had no money, and they were ridiculously in debt. Thus, depression, right? You're a little upset, you have nothing, and there were some people, it's not like they were doing all this stock, they were just normal people who had their life savings in the bank, and now it's gone. 40 years of saving up money, just nothing, literally. And banks didn't do that at the time, so they didn't have all these regulations that they do now. One of the reasons we have regulations is because things like this have happened, and they're like, whoa, we gotta change something. So, some people will say that the stock market crash was what started the Great Depression. That is actually a fallacy, debate students, which is the one that correlation does not equal causation. Anybody remember? I couldn't remember. Okay, so the stock market crash was part of it. But the problem is the whole thing was just leading up to it the entire 20s, basically. People were spending more than they had. 80% of the people were in debt, as you remember from last week. People were just partying, not thinking about the consequences. And there were consequences. So, to start, the 1930s, we are in big trouble. You are in the United States, and we've got some things that happened during that decade, and you're going to put them where they belong, those of you who actually know geography. I'm going to remove the and this guy. Okay, we're going to take a little break and get organized. So all of you people who are here, you may turn your chairs around to face that. Dana Spivey, would you please collect all the trash shares because they're worth nothing and throw them in the trash? Yes. Iodine. Iodine. It's actually good for you. Just don't drink it. All right. Look at it.
It's not worth anything.
Yeah, someone.
Depreciation set in.
I'm actually going to.
This is the pain.
Wait, we could do this. I thought you said
Okay, you want me to write it out?
You two are going to be in charge of this stuff. I have faith in you. All right. I'm going to call the roll. I want you to say here for here, and I want you to say worksheet. If you brought your worksheet, you'll be turning them up here, but you don't do that right this second if you don't want to. While I do that, would you please hand out one of these to everybody? Here we go. Rebecca, here, worksheet. Rachel, here, worksheet. Joshua. Jordan, here. Hallie, here, worksheet. Meadow. Audrey, here, worksheet. Claire, here, worksheet. David, here, worksheet. Luke,
Here, worksheet.
awesome. Anna Rose, here. Ryan,
Here, worksheet.
Levi,
Here, worksheet.
Lily, here, worksheet. Violet 1, here, worksheet. Violet 2. Okay, thank you. Priscilla, here, worksheet. Phoebe, here, worksheet. Maria, Moses, worksheet. Chloe, here. Tate,
Worksheet.
Bree, Tessa, Daniel 1 and 2,
Resin.
and Hope. All right, Jamie, here. All right, good job. So let's see what else we have to learn about the 1930s. All right, I'm going to move this guy. In your midst. This is going to be great on the photo.
It's right here.
Okay. Okay, if I can have your attention, please. Let's find out about the rest of the Great Depression, which I also like to call the Great Hangover. And what do I mean by that? Basically, the 20s was this great party. Well, you party, you make some unwise decisions, the next morning you're going to have a headache as big as your head, and you're going to be throwing up in the toilet, and you're going to be wishing you hadn't done that. But it's kind of what happened to the American public. They partied through the 20s, they made some bad decisions, and now they're paying for it. And it wasn't just bad financial decisions and bad this, that, and the other. There were also some things that they had no control over that happened that were really bad as well. And it all just mixed together in this big soup that made the Great Depression. And it affected the entire world. If you notice the sign says, I mean, look at this guy. He's like super well dressed, got a really nice car. He wants to sell this car for $100 because he lost everything in the stock market. But who's going to buy it? Because they lost everything too. It's a really, really tough time. So if you want to write in your worksheet, population at this point is 123 million. So from the beginning of 1900s, when it was about like 63, now it's double in like 20 years. The average wage is $1,500. Now you may be saying, wait a minute, Ms. Digman, 10 years ago it was only like $750, so that's great, right? Well, not really, because in 1929, just last year, the average wage was $2,300. So it went, so that's what this is showing, the Dow Jones average. This is what's happening in the stock market, which kind of represents what's happening among the people as well. This is the stock market before the crash. See this bull run? It's like, woohoo, we're doing great, this is awesome. And then like, yeehaw, this is fabulous. And then all of a sudden just like jumping off a cliff. Just
How
It's
much
all
was it from
over.
1929?
in 1929, the average wage was $2,300, and it went down to $1,500, which that's a lot of peanuts. Okay, so Priscilla and Bree, you have a paper that says the stock market crashed. That happened in Wall Street in New York. So you can hand it to somebody. Violet, can you come get the paper and bring it up to New York, and you can put it on the floor where New York goes. Okay, there was also bank failures, as I mentioned, banks closing down, bad situation. The banks closed down in Kentucky, and it spread to Illinois, to Michigan, to Indiana, to Arizona, and to North Carolina. That's a lot of banks. That's a lot of people who are in big, big troubles. There's a bank failure. Why don't you put it in somewhere near Kentucky, which I think is about where my stool is. Okay, then there was the Dust Bowl. Poor people. I knew it was really just bad. The Dust Bowl was partly a result of circumstances and partly just, oh my goodness, just a mess. So the farmers had made certain choices that resulted in this potential problem. So say you're a farmer in the 1920s, and actually the 1910s when the World War happened, and you needed to produce a lot of extra food and stuff to send to the war. And so you were actually producing tons of stuff, and you were making lots of money, and you were excited about it, so you decided to mechanize your farm. The difference between farming by hand and farming with a tractor is quite significant. So say they go in debt $25,000 to buy a tractor. Well, now they can produce more beans or whatever it is they're producing. So now they produce 10 times as many beans. Well, they go to the store and they find out all the other farmers in the area bought tractors too. So now they have 10 times as many beans. So now you have like 100 times as many beans. Who wants beans now? There's no war anymore. And so instead of $100 per bucket of beans, now it's way down here. So they're losing money too. And now they're in debt. The farmland in the open plains, now remember the Oregon Trail, you know? All these people came out in covered wagons on their own and tried to settle the plains. These are the people we're talking about. They are generations after them. Well, the farming land was overused, and it kind of stripped it dry. And there was also some things about livestock and whatnot. But what ended up happening was that there was this topsoil that was basically like sandy dirt. And you know what happens when the wind blows on the sand, right? It blows it up in the air. And so this is what happened. Except the problem wasn't just a little bit of sand blowing down the road. The problem was miles of sand, like millions of tons of sand, creating this huge dust storm that swept across states and states and states. I want to show it to you because it's unbelievable. This is what we're talking about. So you're sitting there in your house. You don't have real windows because it's a little farmhouse and it's, 1930s or whatever. And you got your door open with a little screen door, right? And all of a sudden you hear this thing. And you look outside and it's this huge black cloud coming at you. What are you going to do? I mean, you can't outrun it or anything. So you hunker down. You try to cover up your window with a, curtain or something. You close the door and it's all dark because, no electricity and all that kind of stuff. And now you are in the big black cloud and it's coming in the windows and it's covering everything you own. And it's just like dirt everywhere. Terrifying. And it didn't let up. This is farm machinery in 1936 in South Dakota, right there. It's just buried. There's that much dust. So they called it the Dust Bowl because it was the section of the plains in the middle of America that kind of made the perfect spot for all this dirt to just head in there. Okay, so you have the Dust Bowl. I think you have two of them. Who's good at geography? Hope? Anybody else? Callie? Okay, you can each get one. Hope, you're going to put it in Oklahoma area. Okay, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas. You're going to put one in the Colorado, South Dakota, Wyoming. Wow. North Dakota, Nevada, and New Mexico. That's a lot of states. So you can put it up near like Colorado and South Dakota would be fine. So look at this. These are the big sections where it's happening, and these are the extra sections where it's affecting people. So as the weeks go by, and they can't go farm, I mean, how are you supposed to go milk your cow? You just put it right there where you're standing. People are like, I know my family built this farm. It's been in our, 100 years. I love this place, et cetera, but we're going to die if we don't go anywhere. And so there were families that packed up what they could fit in their car, if they had a car, and they left. So they call it the Great Migration. And they went a lot of different places, but the biggest batch of them went to California. Don't ask me why. So we're talking like 200,000 people all of a sudden in the middle of a depression when people can't find work and they don't have money. And now there's a whole bunch more people coming in looking for work and desperate and sad. It was really, really a bad situation. So here are some of the families. As you can see, they piled up stuff. But looks like they got a flat tire. What do you do if you don't have a spare? These people don't even have a car. So he's 24, she's 17, they've got a baby, and all they have is that. So they're trying to hitchhike their way to California. For what? What's going to happen when they get there? Poor people.
Why don't they go to the closest state?
Well, some of them did, but the problem is the whole entire country was suffering like this. I don't know, maybe they thought things were better in California. Maybe they thought there's still gold there. I have no idea.
It was
Okay.
like this, Fortune owns like this jobs in California, and everyone was going to California.
Okay, so another rumor, kind of like the stock market. Don't always believe rumors. So I wanted to read you this just because it's really good information. More than 1 million acres of land, 1 million acres, was affected during the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. Thousands of farmers lost their property as well as their livelihoods. Many of the down on their luck farmers migrated to the country's urban centers looking for work and a fresh start. But with 25% unemployment at some points, the chances of finding work were slim. So 1 out of every 4 people didn't have a job anymore. Even steel, which America was so proud of, had to end up laying off, I think, all of their workers. So you used to have this job, it was great, you were doing fine, and then they're like, sorry, see ya, hope you can find something. So there were literally men in suits standing out in the road, like in New York, trying to sell apples for 15 cents. I think there were about 6,000 of them in the city doing this, because they just, a bunch of kids, 7 to 17, quit school so they could go see if they could find work, to try and help their families not starve. So, they started, what are you going to do if you go to a new state and you want to get a job but there's no jobs, and you want to find a house but there's no houses because you have no money? So they were building these little shantyvilles kind of thing, these little shacks out of whatever they could find, and they started calling them Hoovervilles in honor of the current president, who was not being helpful, which we'll get to the politics in a minute. This is one of the most famous pictures from the Depression era, and it kind of just shows the hopelessness and despair of that time. This is in California. Jobless and keep going. We can't take care of our own. That's for the Chamber of Commerce. So, like, it's really bad when you've got to make billboards to tell people, I'm sorry. There's the bread lines. These people, if you notice, they're well dressed. They're not your average homeless person, but they are in such dire straits that they are willing to stand in a line like this to get a little bit of bread and a little bit of soup. This is the ultimate example of irony. It was quite difficult for the African American population. The unemployment, I believe it was in New York, their unemployment rate was so much worse even than the white people's unemployment rate. And it's ironic because you've got this sign that says there's no way like the American way, and we have the world's highest standard of living, and they're standing in a bread line, hoping for a little handout. I believe about 100,000 people actually left America and went over to help build like the Soviet Union kind of thing. It was the one time in American history when more people were leaving America than coming to America. So it was almost like the American dream had turned into a nightmare. Here's another one. No jobs in California. If you're looking for work, keep on. Man, okay. This is an example of one of the Hoovervilles. I've lived in a third world country. There's a lot of these in third world countries, but you don't expect to see them in America. Okay, so what are we going to do about this? We're going to have a blue screen. That's right. Sometimes things just go wrong. Well, look at that. Just imagine. Okay, so Hoover was the president at this point. I don't know of anybody who thinks Hoover was a good president. He kind of found out about all this stuff going on, and people are desperate, and they're like, please help us. And in fact, some veterans, a whole bunch of them, came to the Capitol and said, give us the bonus you told us we were going to have after World War I. And they were basically like, no. So they're like, we got to feed our families. You promised us this money. You need to do something. And it started kind of a issue. So President called out, like, you know, the soldiers on them. And there was a skirmish and people even died in it. So basically the trust in the government was getting destroyed. Trust in the American dream was getting destroyed. What are you supposed to do? Trust in the projectors getting destroyed. So this was a project that provided jobs to lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people. And if you study it, man, it was a doozy of a job. So basically it was quite dangerous. This was this huge, large-scale thing. I think it's like 2 football fields wide. And it was built with concrete, which was like, it had never been done before, and they wanted it done quickly, and so the guy cut a bunch of corners because there weren't all these rules, you know, safety rules and stuff. So, but these guys needed work desperately, and so they were willing to risk their lives to have a job to get enough food to feed their families. I believe this is one of the places that used the canaries. Y'all ever heard about, you know, if the canary stopped singing, get out? Because there was like monoxide poison or whatever it was because of all the stuff. I don't know the details. You can look it up if you want. Actually, if you go on YouTube, there's this, The Story of Us American History series, and they've got a lot of information about this. It's really, really fascinating. So here's it when it's all in construction, and it was just really, really cool. Like, I don't know who thought of it, but neato design. Okay, welcome to politics. So in 32, there was an election, and the funny thing is, Hoover ran for president. So here he is, and everybody's like, these are Hoovervilles, and if they have to make stew out of basically whatever they could find, they called it Hoover stew. And so basically the whole country is like mad at him, but he's like, hey, vote for me. Didn't work out so well. So here's this other guy named FDR, and his thing was, happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. That was actually a song that was very popular then. And in general, it was like, he's not Hoover. So as you can see, everybody was like, this is a good idea. Maybe he'll do something to help us. And so he did. He got elected by a landslide. I've never seen a landslide like that. Maybe Ronald Reagan. And in the first 100 days in office, he did this unprecedented amount of stuff. Whether you like him or can't stand him, with his New Deal, he got some stuff done to help the American people. Now, some of his stuff was unconstitutional, but he did it anyway. And he brought in money, he brought in jobs, he brought in Social Security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He was like, boom, let's go. And things did start changing. But the worst of the Depression was in 32 and 33, so it didn't happen overnight. He used to do these things called Fireside Tax, where he would get on and talk to the American public kind of like they were his children and he was the nice daddy and reassure them. And he's the one who said, we have nothing to fear. The only thing to fear is fear itself. Now, honestly, there were plenty of things to fear, but he was being reassuring. He was saying, keep hope, stick it out, things are going to get better. And he himself had polio and was in a wheelchair. He got polio when he was an adult, and yes.
Fun thing is, when he was being elected, they did not let anyone know he had polio because people would think he was weak. So he'd even like make himself look like he was standing up when he was doing like speeches and stuff.
That's correct. He's not the only president who faked it a lot. It was a very big concern about what the public thought about their leader. And so you tried as hard as you could to make it look like you were very strong and very healthy. When we get to JFK, we'll find out even more about that. Mount Rushmore was another project that was happening at the time. Now, you guys should have a paper for the Hoover Dam, which was, anybody remember what the Hoover Dam was?
It was made out of concrete and it was the project at some of very dangerous.
It was very dangerous. Very dangerous. I believe it was in Nebraska. So if anybody knows where Nebraska is, you can put it there. And then Mount Rushmore is in South Dakota. This is another, the thing about this, you should go home and study Mount Rushmore. The guy who organized this was the same guy who did Stone Mountain. And he was this like super mega visionary. He wanted these guys to be way more than what it was. He wanted Stone Mountain to be like the full horses and all that stuff. But he would run out of money, or weird things would happen. He was a really, really interesting guy. But trying a project like this to get tourists to come to South Dakota in the middle of a Great Depression, it didn't work out the way he hoped. but you can study that on your own. You can also, yeah, I'm sorry, I was talking about them. So there should be a Mount Rushmore as well. That goes in, wherever I said it goes, South Dakota. Okay. Oh, well, isn't that sad? Okay. FDR, Mr. Roosevelt, who was related to the other Roosevelt, and that didn't hurt him any either. One of the things he did was give people jobs. So there were 3 literal new towns that got built that had not existed before, and they're still around today. So you have new towns. One of them goes in Ohio, one goes in Michigan, and one goes in Massachusetts. So somebody, again, with geography. They also built new buildings. They built the Chrysler building, the Empire State Building, which was the tallest building at the time, and they built the San Francisco Bridge, which was the longest bridge at the time. So he just went overboard with this, hey, let's do something big, and let's do something amazing, and we'll feel better about ourselves. Okay, kind of worked. So, people are bored. They are hungry. They had to come up with, kind of scrounge around to find anything they could to eat. Some of the things that they ate were some of the things that were plentiful were onions and peanut butter. So one of the meals was peanut butter stuffed baked onions.
Ooh.
And there was someone recently that decided to try this. And she tried it and she said, peanut butter and onions have nothing to say to each other. So I'm guessing it didn't turn out so good. Another thing that they did, there was just, wow, there were all kinds of it. But my favorite was Ritz crackers as apple pie filling. So you don't have apples to make a pie. So you crumble up Ritz crackers and you make a pie like that, and it's sort of almost, maybe if you use your imagination, tastes like an apple pie. In fact, it was such a popular thing that Ritz crackers put the recipe on the back of their box. And I guess in the 90s, just out of nostalgia, they put it on the back of their box again so that you could try to make an apple pie out of crackers. But the one thing that still remains, dun, 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 that's macaroni and cheese. Thank you very much. Nobody's going to starve. This was easy, it was quick, and it was cheap. And so people were able to do it for a meal. So they had advertisements like the husband coming home and saying, we just got home, honey. How did you prepare a meal so quickly? She's like, that sort of thing. Still around, and we're still eating it. Thank you very much. I love the stuff. All right, so the buildings were the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, and the San Francisco Bridge. So one's in California, and thank you. So, what are people supposed to do? They are in despair, they're trying to keep hope, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no TV, there's no internet, there's no, I just want to veg out, etc. But they had the radio. Just about every family in the States at this point has a radio, and it was pretty much their whole entertainment, except on the weekends when they could go to the movie theater. So the radio is what they're listening to get their news, to get their fun stuff, to hear the stories, hi-yo, soar, and all that kind of stuff. And they would get acted out on the stage, actually, for the radio. There's microphones, and people would be doing the dialogue and whatever, often in front of a live audience. And then there would be a guy who was responsible for the sound. So if somebody's walking in, he's got shoes on a little board, and he's like, click, 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 click. And if there needs to be thunder, he's got macaroni in a Ziploc bag going, all these cool things. You can get online and study about the sound people. They still exist, and it's really, really fascinating. You wouldn't believe, what can you use a piece of celery for? You break your leg, it's really fascinating. So what were they hearing about on the radio? Well, they were hearing about the famous Amelia Earhart, who topped Charles Lindbergh's record. She was the first woman to fly across solo. She tried a solo flight around the world, disappeared in the middle of the ocean, and we still don't know what happened to her. Sorry. This guy. Oh, I gotta tell you about him. Where did I put him? His name is Joe Louis. Joe Louis was the grandson of slaves. His family was driven out of Alabama by the KKK, so he didn't have an easy start of it. The Depression was tough on his family, and so he fed his family by boxing. He lost a championship fight in 1936 to a German. Now, later in the 30s, this is a big deal, because Germany and the United States are not playing nice at this point. It looks like war might be on the horizon. People are getting nervous. And Germany was like, we're the best in the whole world, blah, 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 Aryan race and all that, right? So Hitler was super excited about his white German guy beating a black American guy. So he was all super proud, big head about it. Okay, Joe trains. There's a rematch in 1938. The same two guys. This was like a political event. People all over America are like, what's going to happen? Because we're up against Germany. This is about us and about Germany and about their pride. So, 70,000 people watch it live. 70 million Americans listen to this fight on the radio. It was the most listened event ever worldwide at that point. In 124 seconds, the fight was over. Joe beat him. It was so awesome. So for us, it was like this total redemption. And, you know, obviously Hitler didn't spend much time talking about it at that point because, you know. So that was pretty awesome. 124. 124 seconds, which is, what, 2 minutes and 4 seconds? That's pretty awesome. Some more things that happened in this era. The Star Spangled Banner was chosen as the national anthem. So it wasn't in the 20s. Fireside Chats. The Appalachian Trail is finished, which y'all have a sign for that. It goes all the way up the East Coast, so you can put it wherever you want, except like Mount California. And Social Security begins, whether you love it or hate it. He did it to help, and, you know, it's still going today. Horror movies were kind of in. On Saturdays, you could forget all your troubles and go in for 15 cents. Watch a double feature, so a movie and then cartoons and then another movie and the news as well, and spend your whole day just forgetting about the fact that you were poor and had no job. I guess you wanted to scare yourself, I'm not real sure. The pinball machine was an invention, which for a time later became illegal, which we can talk about next decade. But you'll notice these are adults playing this. So remember, there's still no such thing as a teenager. Interesting. But at that point, the pinball thingy, it was more of a game of chance. But we'll get to that next week. Two big things of this decade that make sense. Superman comics. We need somebody to come and rescue us. We're looking for somebody who's powerful and who's good and who's strong and who's going to come and save the day. The other thing, Davey, would you explain why this is popular? Before I get a drink? The game.
Monopoly. You all went bankrupt a couple minutes ago. This was a chance for everyone to feel like they own something. So you could go around the board, you could get hundreds of dollars, and then buy your own business. And if you were good at the game, you could run the whole board, make everyone else go bankrupt, and you could own the whole thing. You know, it makes you feel good, like you had the chance to do something.
Do you remember what they were saying about the original intention was to teach you good money practices and teach you not to be taking over the whole world? But people were like, ooh, this is a great game. I'm going to take over the whole world. It was like, oh, okay. Still going today. The Hindenburg Disaster. I have the actual radio live feed from the guy watching this.
Just enough to keep it from. It's right, it's terrible. Oh my, terrible by me. It's running, breaking, and abandoned, and it's falling on a morning bed. All the folks that we said it's terrible. It's one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, it's like, oh, 400 or 500 feet into the sky, and it's a horrific crash, maybe filled with smoke and flames now, and the fire rising to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast. Oh, the humanity, all the time, just feeding around me. I can't stop maybe still.
Can you imagine? You're listening to the radio, you're listening to this big cool thing coming in, and then all of a sudden you hear that. That was the feed from the radio. It was one of the first disasters ever caught live, and people experienced it. That's a good question. It came from Germany. Where was it?
When it crashed, it was in New Jersey.
New Jersey. It was a disaster, but crazy fact, more than half of the people on there survived. Like 37 people died, I believe, but over 60 people made it. You can get on YouTube and actually watch it. It was filmed. And when it crashes to the ground, you'll notice little tiny people running from it. There were people, because as it fell down, it kept burning and burning and burning, but some people were able to jump out and run for it. Really, wow. Okay, this one, I just love this so much. The War of the Worlds. by H.G. Wells.
Oh,
It was
oh
a
my God.
futuristic, kind of scare you to death, the aliens are coming and they're going to take over, right? Well, it was a radio drama, and Orson Welles was reading it, and he was an amazing, famous actor. So he's reading this very dramatically, and in it is like a news scene. So like that, the news report. Well, you know, you can't guarantee when somebody gets on the radio. So all of a sudden, he's reading this news scene that the Martians have come, and the Martians are going to take over, and there's going to be a war, and like all this stuff. Now, we think of Martians as these cute little whatevers from the Bugs Bunny comics, but at the time, okay, it's post the war, people are still nervous, whatever. The aliens, you know, the aliens are here, the aliens are here. So the police start getting all these phone calls from people. The Martians are here, we have to whatever. And it turns into this whole national panic. The whole blooming country's freaking out because the aliens have arrived. And he didn't do it on purpose. I think the poor guy was like, what? You know? So it ended up being in the paper that, yeah, that was embarrassing. Okay. So if you ever hear on the radio that the Martians have arrived, just get online and see what's going on first before you call the police. Clothing, not a big, huge decade for fashion because people are really poor. So if you notice, we've gone real simplistic at this point. And for some reason, the really fashionable people, slouching was in. If you watch movies from the 30s, the women are slouching like this. And they talk like this. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da. I don't know why. Like, what was with the slouching? Maybe when they were little, their mom kept telling them to sit up, and now that they're adults, they're like, no, I'm going to walk like this. Yeah, whatever. All right. This little girl single-handedly helped our country get through the Great Depression. People would go and watch movies with this sweet little kid who had a big smile. The movies were cheerful. They always ended happy. People got what they needed. They fell in love. It was like their version of a Hallmark movie. Very sweet and cute. Not a lot of heavy depth, but kind of what the country needed. She grew up, I don't know if you know, but she grew up to be an ambassador. Pretty cool. And she still looks cute though. She still has this dimple even when she's like 65.
She was from this tree.
Yes. Well, a lot of them were, along with this one. 1939 was the year that The Wizard of Oz came out, as well as one of the biggest movies of all time, Gone with the Wind. Whether you love it, hate it, want to cancel it, whatever. There's so much we could say about this, but we don't have time. One interesting thing about it, though, it is talking about the Confederacy in the war, and the premiere was in Atlanta. Most of the book is set in or near Atlanta, and it's about when Atlanta got taken over by Sherman and when he came through and all that kind of stuff. But the premieres in Atlanta was a huge deal. I mean, this was the biggest money-making movie of all time, and that record didn't break until the 90s. It was that popular. This woman, Hattie McDaniel, she was the mammy in the movie, if you've ever seen it, and she was amazing. She was fabulous. She won an Oscar for her part. But since the premiere was in Atlanta and Atlanta was still segregated, she was not allowed to go. So that kind of tells you something. And then there's this guy. So, there's the Depression. FDR comes in, and he's basically like, it's okay. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. We're going to get through this, right? We're going to build America up again. We're going to make America great again. That's the whole thing. And America needed that. And they were like, okay, we're on board. Let's go. Well, a similar thing was happening in Germany and also in Italy. My war expert over here is going to be talking next week. So there's a guy, Mussolini. He's doing this in Italy. We need to build us up again, have national pride again. Trust me, we'll make this great again. People are like, okay, except he was a dictator and he brought in, really bad stuff. Germany, same thing. After the war, they were kind of toast. In fact, America, one of the reasons we had money troubles is because we were loaning so many millions of dollars to Germany so that they could pay reparations that they owed other countries from the war. I'm thinking that wasn't really a good idea, but I wasn't in charge. Nobody asked me.
Wait, didn't they have tension between them? Why were they giving them loans?
Beats me. Maybe, you know what, I don't even know. I don't even want to think about it. So Hitler does the same thing. Germany is just like flat, and he's saying, hey, we need to make up German pride again. We need to make this happen again. I'm going to lead you. And so the people are just desperate to not feel like losers. And here's this guy, he's super charismatic, and not charismatic in the spiritual church sense, charismatic in the pep rally sense. And everybody's like, this is great. Germany's going to be great again. This is fabulous. Then he starts this Nazi youth program, and he's giving you guys guns. And so kids are like, this is great, you know, and so they're excited. And, you know, so he is building this thing. And slowly but surely, things are happening in the world scene that are going to affect the whole world as we know it. That's his tale for next week. But for this week, just know that stuff's going on behind the scenes. Now, everybody should have their worksheet for next week. Can you flip it over to the back? Can I borrow it? Because I don't remember what your homework is. Okay. Oh, there's a question for high schoolers and there's a question for everyone. High schoolers, you may choose which ones you want to answer. But for everyone, it's explain the stock market crash. So if you didn't understand it from today, you can ask your mom or you can get on the internet and try and learn about it. But for high schoolers, I want your thoughts this time, not just looking things up in research. I want you to do some thinking. If someone were to predict that history is repeating itself and America is headed into another Great Depression, what are some things from our current society they could use as evidence for their claim? So basically, do you see hints in our society that's like, whoa, if this doesn't change, we're going to repeat history all over again. We're going to end up in another depression. This is a bad idea. This is something that needs to change. I don't know if we're alone in running to Germany at this point, but if we are, maybe we should stop. So you can be thinking about that. I look forward to hearing what you have to say.